Hey, I'm Olivia,
And hey, I'm Dad.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. Welcome back, flight crew. We are back this week to finish up our Treasured Attractions Tower of Terror episode. Last week, we got into a little bit of the history of the ride, how the ride works, as well as some different Easter eggs and hidden Mickeys throughout the attraction. This week, we're going to get into the differences between the different versions around the world, as well as some fun stories that we have from some of the memories with this attraction. So, first, I did want to start off by saying we finally remembered as soon as we hit stop recording, but the National Enquirer was the name of the magazine that was phony. Last week, we were talking about the movie Tower of Terror and how Steve Guttenberg's character works for a phony magazine, and neither one of us could think of it. And as soon as we stopped recording, Dad said the National Enquirer. So that is the name that we were trying to think of for the phony magazine. That Buzzy in the movie works for something very similar to that. As far as this attraction, we wanted to kind of talk through which parks it is located in. It's in some international parks as well, and kind of the differences between these attractions across the globe. So, after the success of the original Tower of Terror at Walt Disney World, the attraction went on to inspire three additional versions around the globe, each one sharing the same core concept but reimagined to fit the needs, style, and culture of its park. The parks in which it is located, other than Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World, are Disney Studios Park in Paris, soon to be Disney Adventure World, Disney California Adventure, where it remained until 2017, and Tokyo Disneyland. Disney California Adventures version that was there from about 2004 until 2017. And this was when, at a time when Disney California Adventure was in need of a major crowd puller in its early years, and Imagineers turned to the plans originally designed for Paris to bring a new Tower of Terror to the West Coast. This version took on an architectural style inspired by Southern California's Pueblo Deco movement and incorporated a streamlined ride system. Unlike the Florida original, the California version removed the famous fifth dimension horizontal track scene. Imagineers had never been fully satisfied with the reliability of that effect, so they designed a simpler but still highly effective approach. Guests entered the fifth dimension immediately after boarding, and the ride used enhanced visual illusions like the iconic mirror scene, where guests appeared to vanish before the drops began. This tower operated with three independent elevator shafts, each with two load levels, allowing for higher capacity and easier maintenance. In 2017, it closed permanently to make way for the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout ride, though the ride system and structure really remains the same. So, Dad, I know you haven't been able to get on this version of the attraction over in California, but have you seen video footage of this version of the ride?
Yes, I've seen some video version of it, and I think it's kind of interesting that they had 10 years to kind of change things around a little bit, see what worked real well, see what didn't work real well, and then make adjustments. Because I believe it was 1994 where the Walt Disney World version opened. Wasn't that correct? 1994, I
Yes.
believe.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so they had 10 years of kind of watching that, and they made some adjustments, like you mentioned, for maintenance and everything, and still put on a really good show, but it was just a little bit different. But yeah, I've seen some, and I thought that was well done also.
Yeah, it is well done. And I think the original version, when it was still the Tower of Terror before it changed to Guardians, like you said, there were just a few unique changes that kind of made it its own thing. Spoiler alert for people who haven't been on the attraction or don't want to know about the attraction, the differences over there. Fast forward for just a minute or so, but the attraction, like it says, it has a single shaft, so it's not featuring that horizontal piece, which means you don't go through this ride scene before you drop. And so the very first time that Maddie and I went on this, I was not expecting that. I hadn't really done a lot of research into the ride. I knew that it was different. We didn't ever get to ride the original Tower of Terror version. But I was shocked, literally, when the attraction just dropped right there in that first shaft. It just wasn't something that I was expecting. And so I think that is something that makes it really cool and unique, especially for people that have ridden both versions to just have that change. Now, the change to the Guardians of the Galaxy obviously makes me sad as this is my favorite attraction, but I do have to say they've done a really good job with it. It makes it very unique because each time it's kind of like the Guardians ride at Epcot, where each time you get a different song. And so it's kind of like you don't really know what to expect. The re-rideability is really good and it's a little bit more fun and upbeat. So that is something that I really like about this attraction. Have you seen the videos of the changes with the Guardians in it, Dad?
I have not looked into that yet. I know, I believe Regan mentioned that he thought the changes, of course, he's a big Guardians of the Galaxy fan, but your
Right,
brother
yeah.
Regan, yeah, your brother Regan really enjoyed that. So
Yeah, no, it is. It's definitely for Marvel fans. I mean, it's right in now what is Avengers Campus. It used to be kind of like misplaced because once it changed from Tower of Terror, that whole section of Disney California Adventure was kind of like old Hollywood. And now, even now, it's a little disjointed over there. And so they're getting ready to do, more Pandora type Avatar stuff. And so it's going to feel a little out of place, but now the way they have that set up, it's become Avengers Campus, and so there's more Avengers and stuff, attractions over there, meet and greets. They're getting two more attractions here in the next couple of years in that section of the park, so it makes a little bit more sense. But prior to that change to Avengers Campus, it just seemed really out of place, kind of over off in the corner, which seems to be a little bit of a theme of this attraction in the way that the parks that it originated in have kind of changed over the years. And so that brings us over to the Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris. From that opened in 2007 and is still there today. And the Paris version was originally intended to be nearly identical to the California Tower, but it was built using concrete instead of steel due to the French construction regulations, making it uniquely robust. The show scenes, layout, and overall ride profile closely match the California version, including its non-randomized drop sequence and two-level boiler room. So the attraction actually received this major enhancement in 2019 with the debut of the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror: A New Dimension of Chills. This update included three new storylines and multiple drop profiles, all centered on the little girl from the original Tower's narrative. With new effects, new pacing, and new illusions, Paris now has the most story-driven Twilight Zone tower in the world. So, very much about the story of this little girl. I've heard it's very spooky and eerie. Definitely the most like creepy version is what I have heard. But this is another park, the Walt Disney Studios Park. Pretty much everyone who has been there has said it is so disjointed and it's kind of doesn't have a flow. And so this attraction is kind of just kind of plopped down in there and nothing really around it makes sense. It's not going to be Walt Disney Studios Park anymore, so it won't have that movie theme kind of similar to California Adventure. So really it only kind of fits the best out of these three parks in Hollywood Studios, where it still is called Hollywood Studios and has a little bit of that movie element still. Have you seen any kind of pictures or footage of this? I haven't watched any ride-throughs of this attraction, but I've just heard a lot of positive things about it.
I watched a lot of YouTube videos, kind of a lot from Justin Scard, the Random Land guy that I like so much.
Yeah,
He's been over there many times. He loves Paris and Disney's Walt Disney Park over in Paris. But no, I actually have not seen anything with a Tower of Terror. I don't want to get off the track here, but I guess from what I can gather and what I've seen, their castle looks like it's amazing.
yeah,
Um, and it kind of blows away anything over here in the States when it comes to their castle, their version of the castle. even with the dragon underneath, but that's for another time. So we'll talk about that somewhere down the road.
Yes, yes, we'll definitely have to do similar to how we did Walt Disney World, parks of the past, present, and future. We'll have to kind of do that for each of the other parks at some point too, Disneyland included, Disneyland Paris, Tokyo, all of that, just to kind of talk through some of these really cool things that other parks have that are unique. But yes, I've heard the same thing that Disneyland Paris, the main park, is very beautiful, well, kept architecturally very nice and something that kind of cool that happens over there is it snows, which is really interesting to see like pictures of the castle with the snow and Main Street with the snow and yeah, it's very interesting, very different obviously than Florida or California's climate. But yeah, I think it'd be really cool to see some more about this attraction. It's definitely high on my list to get to. And then over in Tokyo Disney Sea, this one actually opened in 2006 and is still open today. So Tokyo Disney Sea's Tower of Terror is the most unique of all because it does not use the Twilight Zone IP. The series isn't well known in Japan, and licensing the name would have required the Oriental Land Company to pay fees to both Disney and CBS. Instead, Imagineers created an entirely original storyline set with the ornate Hotel Hightower, built richly detailed Moorish revival style. This version tells the tale of Harrison Hightower III, an eccentric and morally questionable collector who stole artifacts from around the world. His prized possession was the idol Shiriki Utundu, ultimately curses him, causing his elevator to plunge on New Year's Eve instead of Halloween, 1899. Guests enter the abandoned hotel in 1912 as part of the restoration tour, only to learn the curse is still very much alive. The ride system is very similar to California and Paris, but the show scenes and the pacing are completely different, filled with unique effects featuring Shiriki, shifting stained glass, and dramatic appearances by High Tower Spirit. Though each Tower of Terror shares DNA with the original, every version really kind of reflects on the culture, storytelling style, and needs of its park, from California's streamlined technology to Paris's story expanding overlays to Tokyo's entirely new story. So together they form a fascinating evolution of one of Disney's most iconic attraction concepts. So what do you think, Dad, about the Japan version not being Twilight Zone IP? Do you like it? Do you wish it stuck with the IP? What are your thoughts there?
No, I that's fine. Every culture is going to want to maybe do some of these things a little bit differently, and you have to kind of roll with that. I'm sure a lot of people from all over the world go to Tokyo Disneyland,
Yeah.
but I'm sure the majority of them are probably people from that area, from Japan around, or even Asia around that area. So
Hmm.
I'm totally fine with it. I think it's kind of actually cool to see something different like that, a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so why just kind of just repeat the same thing all the time and just to change it up a little bit? I think they did that in a lot of different attractions and a lot of different parks all around the world, which is great. I think it just mixes it up a little bit, makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely something that makes me want to go there more just because it's not a carbon copy, even though it's my favorite ride. It's funny when they talk about this idol and how he stole this idol. It reminds me of Indiana Jones. So
Oh,
that's
sure.
like the first thing I thought of. Obviously not the same, but that is kind of what it reminds me of. And I've heard that they even sell like different little memorabilia and merch related to this idol and this attraction that people, take home and put on their shelf or whatever. But I think that's kind of funny. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about all of the different attractions across the globe. There's obviously not a Tower of Terror over in either of the China parks, Hong Kong or Shanghai, which I think is interesting. And we will see what happens when they build this new Abu Dhabi park. But there are the four versions that are listed here, including the modified Disney California Adventure version. And I hope that they don't ever change our version to something else, that would make me super sad. I know we've talked about that in past episodes, just because I think people would be really upset. There has been a lot of whispering because of the cost of the IP, but Disney has so much money. I think that's just ridiculous. It's not a problem. They need to really keep it there. Otherwise, people will be upset. So I love the IP. So which versions have we been on? Unfortunately, I was never able to go on any other original version of this ride besides Hollywood Studios, but I obviously, as I stated, have been on the Guardians of the Galaxy version of this attraction multiple times. And although I truly hate that they changed it, I think the version is super fun. I'll give a few more stories on this in a minute. But Dad, the only version you have been on is Hollywood Studios, obviously. So do you remember what year we first went to studios? And did you go on it before you took me on it the first time? I think last episode you said the first time you went on was with me. We can kind of jump into story mode here.
Yes, I believe I know the first couple of trips when we did live in Florida, I know we went to the Magic Kingdom and we went over to Epcot, but I think until we actually got annual passes and we moved down to Bradenton, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
we started going all the time. My guess, from what I can remember, probably 99 was the first time that we went to the Hollywood Studios park and saw Fantasmic. And I think you were 6. So if I'm doing my math right, that would be about the time that you and I probably went on that ride for the first time. And I know the first time I went on it was with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if you had been. Had you been to Hollywood Studios before we moved down there at all?
No, we never went there again. I think we just went. I know we always went to the Magic Kingdom. There were
Yeah.
just two trips before that. I think it was in 96, 97. We flew down there from Michigan.
Yep.
And yeah, I think we just, because it was all kind of fun and new, because it was years and years since we've been just to the Magic Kingdom, let alone Epcot. That's the first time I even got a chance to see Epcot was in 96. So
Okay.
we kind of hit those parks kind of hard. And then when we moved down in 99, then we had annual passes. We could do whatever we wanted
Yeah.
to do. And we did
And we did. And we went to Hollywood Studios, aka MGM Studios, many, many, many times.
many times.
Okay. So what is your first memory of going on this attraction with me? What do you remember about going on it the first time and kind of some things that happened when we rode the ride?
Well, I knew I was a little concerned for you since you were only 6, going, I
Yeah.
don't know if my daughter's going to hate me after this or she'll just love it. You don't know. I knew it was safe. You weren't going to obviously get hurt or anything like that, but I knew it had a lap bar. So I had a funny feeling you would be floating a little bit up and
Yeah.
down on that attraction, and you did. But yeah, my recollection was you didn't say much. You were scared, and I think we have a picture of us taken, obviously, from Disney right on their camera as you're on that ride. And yeah, you look pretty scared.
Yeah.
And then you didn't. Well, I'll let you tell the story about when you got done with that. But yeah, that's what I remember. But I mean, you weren't screaming, and like I never want to go on it again. I just don't think you said a whole lot at
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah. I vividly remember this ride and riding it for the first time. This one and Splash are probably two of the most memorable first rides for me, even more so than Space or Big Thunder for whatever reason. I was about 6, and it was after we had just moved to Florida, and I think probably right when we first got our annual pass, um, would that have been kind of like 99, I guess, or like early 2000, maybe. I can't remember when we first got our passes, but I do remember you warning me it would be dark and fast and feel like we're falling. And I believe by then I had already done Space, Splash, and Big Thunder. So I felt like I was ready. I wanted to go. I want to say Uncle John was with us, maybe. Is that right? I don't know. I know he was on Splash.
He was on Splash at some point when we went with him, but on that particular day, it was just the 4 of us. Your mom and
Okay.
I, and you and Regan, and that was typically the way we would, go to Disney. But sometimes we'd have relatives join us from up north and spend some days with us over there.
Okay. Yeah, he was for sure on Splash my first time. I can recall that. But I just remember getting off the ride and, like you said, being totally quiet and you asking me if I liked it. And I think I shook my head yes, but I like did not verbally say anything for like half an hour, which, if you know me, is a feat in itself because I literally talk all the time and did as a kid too. My firstborn is the exact same as me in that way. So yeah, that is kind of what I remember of that attraction too, and being six. So we'll get into some more stories in a minute, but that's exactly how I remember it. Do you remember the first time Regan went on it? I was trying to remember like how old he would have been or like if he was really scared or not, because I know for a while you and I just went ourselves. Mom obviously isn't into it, and Regan, I don't think was for a while.
Yes, your brother Regan, being a few years younger than you, he didn't really enjoy the coasters and all the, the things that could scare a lot of kids, right? Tower of Terror being one of them. He
Yeah.
would do the Haunted Mansion and all the other, things, of course. But it took him a little while. And I think at a Halloween party when he was about 10, we took him on uh, the mine train, Big
Oh, Big
Thunder.
Thunder.
And it's the first time he went on a roller coaster like that. And he had a friend with him from school, and we were at the Halloween party. He went on it once. He loved it so much. He went on it again and again. And I think he went on 4 or 5 times in a row. This is back when you could do that, when they didn't oversell the Halloween party. And so I
Yeah.
kind of got him over that. That was over the hump. So my guess, he probably did Tower of Terror maybe that year. He was probably 10 or 11 years old before he started getting a little more of a daredevil. And then he started going, of course, to Busch Gardens and all the other Universal Studios and bombing all the big coasters, right? So he got into it. But everyone, starts a little differently with that. And some people just don't want to do it at all. And that's fine. Whatever works for them.
Yeah, yeah, it is funny. I feel like this is definitely a ride that you either love it so much or it is not your thing. And so there's not really a lot of in between. But yeah, it is funny to think about because now Regan, like you said, goes on everything. He does get a little bit of motion sickness like I do, but not quite that much yet. He is younger than me. It hasn't affected him quite as much yet as it has for me, but he does love coasters now. So, but I do remember as kids, it was pretty much me and you doing all that stuff, and he would just kind of hang back with mom. They did a lot of pool time. We did a lot of rope dropping. So it is
Yes.
just funny to think about. What about Makayla? Do you remember how old she was?
Well, Michaela is my oldest granddaughter out of the four that we have now. We I took Michaela on that. I think she was pretty close to your age, maybe 6 or 7.
Okay.
And she was a little scared. I remember her grabbing my thigh when we dropped. I thought she gave me a black and blue mark on it because it was holding on so tight. But once she did it, much like yourself, she really liked it and she wanted to do it again. And I know, to this day, she really enjoys that ride. She's been on it probably not as many times as you have, but she's been on it a bunch and she really enjoys it.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. So I do remember Eileen's first ride, of course. Vividly remember sending her on the first ride, this first attempt at riding this ride. And I went and stood in standby by myself. We did rider swap because obviously Blake was too tiny to ride at the time. And then Eiley went with Maddie and Regan's wife, Steph. We had showed her a YouTube video and kind of explained that it went fast, and it was the only real big kid ride that she had been on at this point was Big Thunder Mountain. She hadn't been on Space. She hadn't even been on Mine Train, I don't think. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and she had not been on Splash slash Tiana. That was under refurbishment, I believe, at the time anyway. And so she went on this attraction. She was 4. So she was almost 5, but she was still technically 4 years old, had just hit that 40-inch height requirement. And she came off of it and said she liked it and would go again. And she did. I was shocked. So when we went back this last year for her birthday, she had just turned 6 and she wanted to do it again. And we had a great time and she loved it. But funny enough, at California Adventure, she hated Guardians, which confused me because it's not scary themed. It's much more fun and upbeat music. But she did not like that there was no warning about the drop. It just kind of drops. And in that one, she and Maddie went first and sat in the front row. So that was probably also a bit of part of the problem. And when she and I went the second time on Guardians, she almost didn't go through with it. We got to the front of the line and she's like, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, Eileen, we're right here. Maddie had taken Blake in to fill her magic. I was like, we already waited. Like, we had a lightning lane, but we still had to wait a little bit. I was like, we let's just do it again. You love Tower of Terror. And she's like, I do not like this ride. So I was like, okay, well, will you just try it with me one more time? So she did, and we sat in the back and she was in the corner. So she got to kind of hold on to the side and hold on to me, and I held on to her tight. And she said it was better, but even still now, she's like, I don't like that, which is so funny. She's been at this point now, she's been on Cosmic Rewind, Space Mountain, Tiana's, all those crazy rides. And this one, for whatever reason, the Guardians version, even though it's not scary, spooky, it's fun, there's fun music. I think we got Burn in Love by Elvis Presley as our song. And yeah, she was not into it. So it's funny. She says she hates that ride, which kind of cracks me up. And Maddie never rode this either for the first time until he and I went because he didn't really go to Disney a lot as a kid. So his first ride was with me, but he absolutely loved it at that point. He was very much into roller coasters and he was similar to Regan, a little slow to warm up to the coasters. But really wanted to also talk about why this is a favorite attraction for us. So, Dad, why don't you start here since this is an attraction that you love too? What about this ride makes you love it or makes it one of your favorites throughout the parks?
Well, it probably doesn't hurt that it's your favorite to make it one of
Yeah.
my favorites because we've gone on together so many times. So, that doesn't hurt. But, it's for me, it's a lot of times it's about the theming. When you walk through the queue, you're walking through and all the dead trees, and it's a dilapidated old hotel. That's the look, and they just nailed it. Imagineers just did a great job with that. Walking into the foyer there before you go into I guess it's considered the library area, right, where they give you the pre-show.
Yep.
Well, you just look. I spend my time just looking around at everything. People are all busy yapping and looking on their phones, and I'm looking around at all the detail. And I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure many people are like, "Wow, the detail there." And the spider webs and all the stuff because it's just supposed to be an old building that's deserted for years. So
Yeah.
uh, a lot of it is that. Sure, I love the attraction. I love the ride. I like to put my hands up all the time and be in every picture with my hands up. I don't know. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, but
Yeah.
I just find that fun when you don't have to hang on and you can still get a little bit of flow going, right? Even with the lap belt to some degree. Um, so yeah, and I love it when everyone's on there and you know what's going to happen, and you're on the ride. Probably a lot of people have never been on it before, and
Hmm.
they are just screaming. It's kind of fun. And it's fun when you get to the top and they open the doors. I always love that because you can look way out in the distance and see different landmarks way out there. I know it sounds silly, but I'm a real Google Earth map guy. I like to look on those things, and then I look outside there when you're up real high. That's also that was pretty cool too. So yeah, I just really love the attraction. And again, probably the theming, the way it was themed and the story is something I really enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The story is a huge part of it. And like you said, the theming is definitely part of it. It's funny, a lot of people ask me why I love this ride so much because I'm not into scary, creepy things. I'm not a big ghost person. I'm not into like horror movies, scary movies. But I love this attraction because it is such a well-themed, amazing story. It's hard not to love it. And I do like thrill rides and honestly would ride just about anything if I didn't have so much motion sickness in my older age. But I know a lot of people dislike it because they dislike these types of rides in general. It doesn't scare me per se. I think because I've probably no joke been on it 50 times in my life. Many trips I've done it many times in one day. Back when I was young and spry and didn't get sick so easy, I would ride it sometimes 4 times in a park day because it's just that much of my favorite, especially back on days where it was lower crowds and not as long of a wait. We would just kind of go on it over and over. And back in the fast pass era when you could get, fast passes for attractions and things like that. So I think that's just why I love it so much is just definitely the nostalgia, definitely the theming, but all the memories that are associated with the ride are a huge piece of it for sure. So it is a great attraction. Some tips for the attraction if you have not ever ridden this attraction or it's one that you're uneasy about. If you are not into big drops, it is definitely not for you. It does have that 40-inch height requirement. And if you see that the wait time says 13 minutes, that actually means that it is a walk-on. So if you see that on the app or on the little display kiosk outside of the attraction, go on in because you will not wait long. But like Dad said, it's even when you get to wait, sometimes I actually prefer to wait, which is why I was glad to do that when Eiley wanted to ride the first time because I like looking at all the stuff in the queue. It's not one that I mind waiting for. There was a trip that Maddie and I went with Regan and Steph. I think Eiley might have been with mom or something, and we all wanted to wait to ride it. And it was like over an hour wait, and it was long. We kind of looped all the way back through the Phantasmic area. It was quite a wait. But if you see that the ride is starting kind of at the entrance where you scan in for Lightning Lane and you kind of split off between Lightning Lane and Standby, that's probably about like a 45-minute wait or so. But if it's outside of that, you're looking at an hour wait. So just kind of gauge. I know sometimes they hike up those wait times and say hour, 75 minutes, but if the queue is inside of that section, it most likely is under an hour unless there's some amazing amount of lightning lanes. And the lightning lane merge point for this ride is fairly early. You merge before you go into the pre-show, and then there's still a little bit of a wait afterwards. So even with the lightning lane, you're probably most of the time looking at a 20-minute wait between the pre-show and the actual riding of the attraction, unless you just walk right through all of that and it's not busy or it's like an after hours event. Anything else, Dad, that you would say to somebody who hasn't ridden this or tips for the first time or anything like that?
Well, just just be prepared, but you have a pretty good idea when the elevator drops. If I remember right, it does kind of lock in place, and there's a little bit of a stall, but that's kind of when it goes through the fifth dimension,
Yeah.
and where the window breaks and you go through, and you just kind of know you're locked in this, goes and then stops and it locks in. You know you're going to drop, so just hang on to your seatbelt or whatever you can grab there, and down you go. And again, I think unless people have a real problem with drops like that, I think most people that probably try it probably really enjoy it because I think it's just very well done, and I just never get tired of it. I haven't gone on it in a while, but that's going to change here pretty soon when we're all going there.
Yes.
I get to ride it with my daughter again here in March, so we're real excited about that, and see a lot of other attractions there too. So, but yeah, I just think just prepare for when it does drop, but it's not that big a deal, and I think a lot of people want to go on it again and again.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I'm definitely looking forward to getting back on it with you. It's been a long time since we've ridden this one together because we haven't been to Hollywood together. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. In a long time. We've been,
Yeah, yeah, you were probably in junior high, I think, right? Maybe when we went. Uh,
yeah,
I'm
we might have
guessing.
gone in high school or college once to Hollywood. I feel like most of the time when we would go later, it was like Magic Kingdom.
Right.
So yeah, it is. It's been a long time, so it'll be good to get back there. Have you ever been on it with little kids that are just like crying and screaming to get off?
At all the times I have ridden the Tower of Terror, I've never had that experience. I've heard, kids screaming or even adults screaming, but
Yeah.
they're screaming in fright, right? They're not like screaming bloody murder to get them off the ride or anything. And the drops happen so fast, even if someone does get upset, it's not like you're on it for a long time. You have to just deal with that. It's pretty quick and then you're off. But yeah, I've been fortunate enough to never have that issue.
Yeah, that's good. I really have only had that issue one time that actually Eileen's said this last time that we went for her birthday. I think somebody said something to me. They had like their 8-year-old kid on there and they said, "Is this her first time?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Oh, okay, it's his first time." And I was like, "Oh, you'll be all right." And after they got off, he wasn't crying per se, but he was like, "I don't ever want to do that again." He was like immediately like, "Nope, not my thing," which again is totally okay. But yeah, I feel like I've only really been on it with adults screaming or like, kind of having a fun time. I've never had anybody really like lose it and totally want to get off or anything like that. So yeah, it is interesting to see everybody's reaction and the pictures when you get done and you look at people's pictures, it is so funny sometimes. Like the things people come up with and do. There's this whole like recently, if you have Lightning Lane for the ride, you actually get the photo pass photo in your app for free, and now they do a video also. So the new thing is what they call a glam bot video where people like pretend like they're putting on their makeup or like they're flipping their hair, and it's so funny to see some of these videos, and other people in the back of the video are like holding on for dear life and like making these terrified faces. So it's super fun to see people's ride photos from this one. We're definitely, like you said, hands up or like posing in some way, trying to be most of the time, because that is the fun way to do it for sure. Okay, well, that wraps up everything for Tower of Terror. We do have a listener question before we get into our Would You Rather for today, which our listener question for today came from our friends at World Showcased, which is a funny account if you don't follow them. And they asked us if you could be a guest-facing cast member anywhere in the parks, what role would you choose? What would be your choice? I have a feeling I know your answer, but
You would have to put me in the stretch room at the Haunted Mansion.
I figured that might be
I
it.
don't want to be outside dealing with the heat. I don't want to be loading the doom buggies. That's kind of boring, but at least you have a couple lines to say when you're in the stretch room. Uh, yeah, I think I'd want to be that cast member in the stretch room at the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, that would be super cool. And I think this answer will surprise no one. I think I would definitely want to be at Tower of Terror as a bellhop and get to work there. I just think that would be such a unique experience. So that would be my choice as well if we got to choose. That would be pretty cool. Okay, so our would you rather for this week is would you rather have unlimited rides or unlimited snacks? What would be your choice, Dad?
Well, I'd have to go with unlimited rides. I don't need unlimited snacks on my age.
Yeah.
Even though I probably really like that, but yeah, I would have to go with unlimited rides. Yeah, that would work for me.
I agree. I think that is also the most like bang for your buck choice. I think there are as I've gotten older and as I've gotten older, this has changed in the parks, but like my appreciation for the different snacks has changed. I really like to try different things every time we go and have a list of different places I want to get to and try to check things off my list. But I mean, I am a huge rides person. The attractions are one of the main reasons that I love to go to the parks. They're just so awesome. So unlimited rides would be my choice as well. And this came from two different people actually submitted the same question. Nicole C. Sanka and underscore travel with Taylor. So thank you guys so much for submitting the question to us. We appreciate it. Well, thank you guys again for joining us this week. I know this was a little bit of a shorter episode, starting off with some news and then getting into the Tower of Terror, but I am looking forward to some things that we have coming up as we get further into the new year. We've got some cool Parks of the Future content that we are planning. We'll be going through Dad's favorite treasured attraction next, the Haunted Mansion, and then we'll be getting into some trips as we get into the upcoming months. We've got some free pre-trip episodes and post-trip episodes, obviously, after we get back from the trips coming up, and some nostalgic nights. So all kinds of things going on over here on the podcast. If you haven't already, be sure and check out our Instagram page where we post different reels every week that relate to the content we're talking about, throwback pictures on Thursdays, as well as our Would You Rather questions for y'all to vote on too. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate everybody's time, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into weekly polls and debates. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow and hit that 5-star button. If you are over on YouTube, subscribe and leave us a comment as well. If you're listening on Apple, a 5-star rating and a written review would mean the world. You can also now support the show through our Patreon. at patreon.com/SoarinAroundWDW podcast by becoming a free or paid member and finding exclusive content and bonus episodes and videos there too. Thanks again for joining us. Catch you on the next flight.